This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today. I'm your host, Jay Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors Big Game Hunting and Fishing podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com/insider. We've got a great episode today. It's actually part 2, elk calling with Steve Chappell. Steve does a phenomenal job describing how he's making those great elk sounds. And having been partners with Steve in the guide business for a long time, and having gotten to spend a lot of time with Steve in the elk woods, he's a phenomenal elk caller, and I've already gotten a lot of feedback from episode number 1, part 1, excuse me. And it's just awesome that Steve's able to spend some time with us and really describe how he is making these great elk sounds. I want to demonstrate for you an elk call that Steve has basically created, and that is the Trophy Wife elk call. It's a fantastic external reed call, and here's how it sounds, and then we'll jump right into the episode.
The orange reed. I prefer it overall for doing my cow calling because it's very sensitive, but it also produces just a nice full 3-dimensional elky tone is what I really like about it. This was what it would sound like just doing what I would refer to as just a standard nasally cow call. Just something like that. Yeah, very sensitive, very 3-dimensional. I don't know if it translates over the phone or not, but yeah, you take it out in the woods, it's got a very 3-dimensional quality to it.
Yeah, very, very realistic, and obviously over the recorder it's not going to sound as good, but if you do go on Steve's website, you can hear it's probably going to sound better. I can tell you in person it is spot on, and there's nothing in my opinion, there's nobody else that can blow a call like Steve. And so that is the Estrus Excited. That's the orange reed. I believe the plate on that, Steve, you can correct me, is maybe not as, it's either more angled or it's the least angled out of all of them. Is that correct?
You know, Jay, they actually all have the same angle on the plate. It's more so in the reeds that you get the tones. That's also the reed that I use to make my more aggressive, high-pitched cow calls, and that sound that
I want to hear that sound. That's I wasn't gonna for sure forget that one. When I say that you went by being a great caller, or let's say a very good caller, all of a sudden you call me on the phone and say, listen to this, and I was floored. I mean, I've done the buzz and stuff for a long time, but this, in my mind, took elk calling to a whole nother level. Can you talk a little bit about it and then give me some demonstration?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to just being blessed with the opportunity to be around elk every year and experience the rut. And, I not only get to guide in Arizona for a month there during the rut, but then I'm able to go to Colorado where my dad has private land, and we guide there year in and year out. And we've got a big herd there, and they're the most vocal elk that I've ever been around. And I started hearing this sound that that I wouldn't have known that elk even make had they not been right in front of me. And I've said it over the years. Anybody that's been to my seminar or whatnot, I equate it to. It sounds kind of like a monkey, just an agitated monkey in a cage screaming is what it sounds like to me. And then I believe there was a point where you got a cow on video doing this sound. And then in 2007, after hearing this sound for probably a decade, I was finally in Arizona in Unit 3C and had a cow come right up to me, probably 8-10 yards away, making this sound. And it's just incredible how, number one, how aggressive it is, how raspy it is, and then more importantly, how the bulls respond to it. So I went about trying to duplicate the sound, and again, kind of going back to my roots and, growing up on the farm and spending a lot of time on the tractor, I just started messing with varying tongue pressure, using my vocal cords, vibrating my lips, various things, and just ultimately, just through trial and error, not because I'm a natural at calling, but just spending a lot of time on it, was able to come up with, what I think we refer to this as the estrus scream. And I'll blow that, and then I'll also blow just what I refer to as high-pitched, excited cow calls. And what I found most recently is if I kind of mix those two together, that seems to be the best combination. Jay, it kind of flies in the face of what we were talking about earlier and how subtle and sexy I want to be when I'm blowing an open reed call. When I blow this call, by contrast, I want to be that loud mouth that wants attention right now, because the cows that I've seen making this sound, it's a desperate sound. It's insistent. They need some attention right now. They're in heat. They're only in heat for a certain amount of time, so things need to happen, and I believe that's why they're aggressive about it. So anyway. This is how I get that sound. I'm blowing the call as if I'm just making a cow call, but I'm using my vocal cords to get that raspiness, and it sounds like this. You can also vibrate your lips, and it gives it this sort of sound. Okay, and then also, like I said just a minute ago, you can also implement high-pitched cow calls, and it just tends to turn up the emotion in what you're putting out there to the bulls, and it's going to sound like this. I know that sounds really wild. That's the hardest.
And would you blow it? Would you blow it just that many times? Would you fire off that?
That's the crazy thing. Yes, Jay. In contrast to how I blow on a normal sequence, it just totally flies in the face of how I usually call. And that's the hardest thing with my personality is not wanting to be loud and intrusive out there in the woods. Sometimes it takes somebody being with me to give me some encouragement. Matter of fact, my second cousin, Gary Stanley, is very good at that. He'll tell me,
He'll be like, cue the wild man.
Yeah, blow that call, get her out and wind her up, and sometimes that's what it takes because I'm just not, my mindset is not there all the time. But yes, when I do finally pull that call out and start blowing it, I'm going to blow it frequently. I'm going to blow it loudly. I'm just trolling along, putting the vibe of love out there, I guess would be the way to describe it. And it's amazing to me. Sometimes even in the evenings, being an elk hunter yourself, how the evening hunt can be so much different than the morning hunt. You can be in an area where the bulls are absolutely tearing it up in the mornings. You can go back in the evenings and it can be completely dead. And there's been times where I'll try my usual standby calls, my, nasally sweet cow calling, nothing will happen. And I'll kind of just out of lack of anything else to try, pull that call out and start walking and blowing, just trolling with it, I guess you could say. And it is amazing. It'll go from total silence in the woods to one bull chiming off at it. And I just start walking toward the bull, blowing that call persistently. And then next thing you know, another bull chimes in, and then another bull. And there's been many, many times when, 2 or 3 bulls will converge upon you, and you're dropping down, getting set up in a big frantic hurry because 2 or 3 bulls are bearing down on you. It's just amazing how dramatic it can be.
Yeah, I've seen you do it, and I've seen you do it on your DVDs, and I've heard that sound, and I know that when I hear that sound, usually you hear bulls fighting, you hear, them crashing trees, you hear all sorts of stuff, and it's just, you're not going to use that all the time,
Right.
Maybe not when the rut's not even going yet, but if it's any time at all where they're getting after it and getting with it in September, I think that call could be extremely deadly. I think one of the things to point out there is a lot of people can do that kind of scream with their lips, but to me, that vocal cord, and if you just do it one more time for me, where you're doing just your normal high-pitched kind of cow call, but then you're letting your vocal cords vibrate, and then going, you're keeping that high pitch. To me, of all the sounds, that is the most authentic cow calling that you could ever want to mimic right there. Can you give me just, 7 or 8 more just of that real intense, sweet vocal cord and high pitch like you were doing?
I agree, Jay. And again, it goes back to emotion control and breath control, because when I first popped that call in a couple minutes ago to do it, I was just a little tuned up emotionally, and it's very hard to do if you have that shortness of breath. So again, I want to stress to guys that the key is to get that deep breathing and just get yourself relaxed before you try to make this call. So let's see if I can pull it off here.
and plus, not having talked for an hour.
Right. Okay, so here goes. Okay.
That's just world class right there, my man. That's unbelievable. Every elk hunter out there, if you're listening, if you're not learning how to make that sound, you are falling behind, and it is very difficult to do. But if you watch Steve, he's got his, you can actually watch his lips and watch how he's doing it on his website. Different links. You can go on his YouTube, and it's a phenomenal sound. Steve, that's the excited estrus calls. Those are fantastic. Run through the other ones, and maybe give me a bugle or two. Let me hear how the challenge, I believe it's the challenge call, bugles.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You have to remind me to bugle, because I'm more about romance out there in the woods than I am about, going out there with a fighter's mentality. But I will say this, guys who bugle accurately, and by that I mean if they hit that high, ringy, strong note, a guy in particular that you and I both know, a good friend of ours, Corey Jacobson, he calls bulls in consistently with bugling, and I believe, again, it's tonal quality is the key. So when I'm bugling, again, that's what I'm looking to do, is hit that high, ringy tone that bulls make when I'm just doing a regular bugle, and then I'll contrast that with a lip ball, which I'll demonstrate that after I do this high, ringy bugle. Okay, that's a high, like a contact type bugle. that would be a sound that I would make just to solicit for a bugle. Maybe I go out there in the morning that the elk aren't talking on their own, or in the afternoon they're not bugling. I'm gonna make a sound like that, and I really try to ring my own ears when I blow that call, and I believe that's when you get the best response out of it. Now, another sound that I'll make, which I just said referred to as the lip ball, I've noticed that the more mature bulls will make this sound. I don't hear the little 2.5-year-old bulls making this sound. And the way I'm getting that is I'm blowing through the call just like I would as if I was cow calling, but with more tongue pressure, and then I'm vibrating my lips. So again, it would be similar to making that estrus scream with your lips, but I'm using a little tighter lip pressure to make the sound. It sounds like this. And I've noticed that sometimes when bulls won't answer just that high-pitched sound, they'll answer that lip ball because, they view you more as a threat to them and their cows when you're out there making that more dominant sound. And then another sound that can be made, which, also just shows more emotion, would be chuckling, adding that onto the end of the call, whether it be a lip ball or a bugle. You could add a chuckle at the end. I kind of think chuckling is just not necessarily a call that a guy needs to make at all to call a lot of elk in. In fact, I think you could go out there for the rest of your life and never chuckle once and call a ton of bulls in. But it's just another thing to add to your arsenal out there. The key to it is that it's a two-part sound. The first part, just by accident, I kind of relate it to the bark of an elk. So it's a real forceful out breath as you're blowing across the reed. So the first part of it's like this. Okay, and you don't want to go around making that sound, obviously, because you're going to scare a lot of elk away doing that. But then the second part, you're breathing air back in, and you actually, it sounds crazy, but you don't have your tongue on the latex of the reed on the second part of the call. It's only on the first part of the call that you're putting pressure on the latex. So when you put it together, I know it's a little hard just over the phone to kind of demonstrate this technique, but this is what it sounds like when you put the two parts together. Just something like that is how that's going to sound. And again, that call takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, I was going to say that's ridiculous.
It takes a lot of breath control. To be honest with you, Jay, I'm not really sweet on my calls right now because it's March. I should be practicing more.
I agree. You need more practice. Yeah, I agree. You need more practice.
No, but seriously, it actually takes some cardiovascular conditioning to blow that chuckle without getting totally out of breath. And now that I blew that, I'm a little out of breath. I need to go out and go for a hike after we get.
Well, yeah, we're working out here on a Sunday afternoon, blowing elk calls. Steve, it's fantastic to hear you blow all those different calls. I've seen you progress as an elk caller, and it's been an unbelievable transformation to where you've come now truly an authority on elk calling, and really appreciate you demonstrating the calls. And I want to do another podcast with you at a later date, and we'll get into maybe some different scenario type stuff. But for today, I want to go into, in kind of conclusion here, I want to talk a little bit about your Chappell Guide service, Premier Elk Outfitter in Arizona, and also I have your Arizona Application Strategies Mastering the Draw DVD, which I watched last night, and I just thought it was phenomenal. I actually learned some things about the draw. Having been a resident for many years here, I thought I kind of knew everything, but you really walk through all the different phases of the draw. How has the feedback been on your Mastering the Draw Arizona application elk strategies been?
Well, I'll say this: the guys who have watched it, the feedback has been, very good, very positive. I think it's a DVD that a person might need to watch 2 or 3 times just to catch everything, because there's a lot of material that's covered there. Every state, the draw has little subtle differences. Our draw in Arizona is unlike any other states. But like you say, I do break it down. I go over each phase of the draw, and I go over specific examples, reports that are off the Game and Fish website. And I think the best thing that a person can learn from it is they can learn not only about the different phases of the draw, but they can learn how to read those Game and Fish reports, which is very important when you go to strategize for what hunts you're going to apply for. Because if you have X amount of bonus points, maybe say you have 15 bonus points, and you're of the opinion that you can maybe draw the Unit 9 archery hunt. Well, if you go on the Game and Fish website and look at the 20% bonus point pass report, it will tell you otherwise. So, again, I think the biggest thing that people can get from that DVD is they actually learn how to read these reports and then go about applying intelligently with a good strategy, because our draw is really all about your first and second choice, and knowing what to put first and what to put second is huge. I'm amazed when I talk to folks out there. It seems like I would say easily 9 out of 10 people don't have a real grasp for how the draw works, and it's not because they're not smart people. It's just because we have busy lives. We have a lot of other things that take precedence over understanding the draw, and I totally get that. It's just what I do for a living, so I figured I better understand how the draw works if I'm going to be giving people advice over the phone. So, I just spent a lot of time studying and reading about it, to be able to produce that DVD. And
well, your examples that you give in the DVD by going through the actual Game and Fish booklet is amazing. And where can people order this application strategies DVD, Steve?
Yeah, it's at the top of the DVD page on my website. So if you just go on to chappellguideservice.com and click on the Elk Calls and DVDs page, and when you're on the DVD page, it's on the very top. The video is $19.95 with free shipping, and I also offer it in package deals with the calls, so you can get the DVD and save a lot of money on the calls by making a single purchase.
Great. And, one of the interesting things about this is, it's not necessarily elk. You can take a lot of what's in this into the deer, into the sheep, into a bunch of the other animals, correct?
Right, yeah, because the concepts apply across the board. I believe the sheep draw is just a little different. Jay, you would probably know more about that because you're a sheep guru. I'm really just an elk freak, to be honest. But yeah, definitely that DVD, if you're applying for elk hunts, for deer hunts, antelope, exactly, it's going to apply. Yes.
Yeah. I misspoke. The sheep is actually different. And then, Steve, Chappell Guide Service, tell me which units you guide in Arizona, and you have some fantastic guides. Give me a little background on Chappell Guide Service and the units. I don't know if you're statewide or if you prefer certain units or what your status is there.
Right. We have guided in most of the elk units. Not necessarily always by choice, but sometimes we'll get clients that draw units that we don't guide a bunch in. But to be specific, most of the time we're guiding in 9, 10, 1, 3A, and 3C. I would say those are our top 4 units that we've guided the most in over the past couple of decades. But we've also guided in 8, 7 West, 6A, 27, 6B, 5B North and South. But again, it kind of comes back to, I believe that the reason why we guide more in those 4 units that I mentioned first, 9, 10, 1, and 3C, is because of the fact that it takes people longer on the average to draw those units. So there's a lot more at stake when a non-resident draws those tags. They've been waiting, anywhere from 12 to 17, 18 years if it's an archery hunt, and longer than that if it's a rifle hunt. And so those people who have waited that long are more apt to book. And I think that's the reason why we guide more hunters in those 4 units. And
and quite honestly, you like, and your guides, you guys like to be in some of the more premier units as well, I would think also.
Sure. Yeah, because just like you, I'm sure you would agree, Jay, we've only got 2 weeks for the actual archery hunt every year. It's the same for you or I as a hunter. So, I guess this might sound a little bit selfish, but obviously, you or I, we're going to want to be in a unit like 9 or a unit like 23, where there's typically more 350 and better bulls, where there's, generally a higher bull to cow ratio because of how the unit is managed by the Game and Fish. It just makes for better calling because you have a higher bull to cow ratio. There's more competition amongst the bulls, so when they hear a call, they're more apt to come to it. So yeah, obviously we're more inclined to want to be in those more premier units just because of the shortness of time. And then the early rifle hunt, it's only a 1-week hunt. So really, besides being there in the unit prior to the hunt starting, the actual hunting with the archery and the early rifle hunt, it's only a 3-week time frame out of the year, and God knows how we make it the rest of the year.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about it's depression from there on out.
Exactly.
But you do late hunts as well as you do some deer hunts and antelope, and you're a full service guide service, correct?
Yeah. We offer fully outfitted hunts with camp and all meals provided if a guide needs that, and then also a very popular option, especially with residents that we hunt with, would be a guided only hunt where they supply their own camp and their own meals and save quite a bit of money by doing that, and we just basically take them out and guide them. The hunting aspect of the fully outfitted or the guided only is exactly the same. It's just whether or not we provide the camp and the meals. And yes, we also do late hunts, which take place there in late November, early December. I won't kid, they're a much more challenging hunt. The bulls are off in more remote areas. They're harder to find. The name of the game there, instead of calling, is glassing. But
I was going to say, they're not streaming their guts out and giving their position away, are they?
Yeah, exactly. Saying, here I am. No, it's more a game of being patient, being a methodical glasser, finding a bull and then making a game plan. And I will say this, there's been bulls that I've taken on late hunts with hunters that just the feeling of accomplishment is just astounding when you overcome all the odds and take a bull on a late hunt. And I will say some of the pack outs can be pretty interesting as well. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and go on the record and say I'm pretty much retired doing any late elk hunts.
Good decision. That's a good decision, Jay. And I will say I'd be very remiss if I didn't give a lot, if not most of the credit to my guides. I have some just absolutely outstanding guides. And, over the years, I've been very fortunate and blessed to be introduced to some just outstanding people, who are passionate about elk, number one, and then also just quality people. Because, let's face it, when you have a guy hunting with you for a week or 2 weeks, you're not only hunting together, but you're out there and you're visiting, you're conversing. I think having a quality connection there is also very important, aspect of the hunt, not just the hunting part of it. So I've been very fortunate to have guides that not only excel in, tagging of big elk and being passionate and driven about elk hunting, but also just having a lot of people skills, a lot of character, a lot of integrity, if we say we're going to go out and leave at 3 or 3:30, by golly, we're ready to leave at 3 o'clock. Just doing what you say you're going to do and following through on it. And I've just been, really, really blessed by God to have some outstanding guides as part of my team.
Absolutely, Steve. It's been awesome spending some time here with you. And I'd like to finish on one note. You mentioned you've been blessed by God. I know you're a man of faith, as am I. I just want to ask you a question about what does your faith mean to you, and can you elaborate a little bit on the blessings and such that we've all gotten, but that you've gotten specifically?
Oh, great question, Jay. Without making it too simplistic, everything to me is from God. I would be nowhere without God. I feel like I lean on Him daily for guidance and wisdom, and because as a human in my own flesh, I'm just very weak and fragile. But when I know I have God on my side, He loves me, He's for me. He wants to help me in my decisions and guide and direct me. And when I lean on that, but most importantly is knowing that despite my imperfections, despite my sin, none of us are perfect. Just knowing that my sins are forgiven, that Jesus Christ dying on the cross, paying the penalty for my sins. Knowing that's what I'm relying on to get me to heaven and nothing else. There's just a sweet peace that brings to a person, and then everything else in life falls in line. And to be honest, I can't imagine living life without that peace and without that relationship with God through that I get through Jesus Christ. It's everything to me.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And just an awesome hour here with you, Bud. I know hopefully maybe during the summer we can have another one and maybe get into more situational, hand-to-hand, tactical type stuff with the calling. Maybe get an update with you, see how your trail cameras are doing, an elk update or such. I wish you the best in the draws, and tell Barb and the kids hello. Tell your dad hello for me, and it's been great having you, and just cherish you as a friend, and just really enjoyed the years I've gotten to spend with you, and admired your work, and just a high-class quality individual, and a phenomenal elk caller and elk guide, and just thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Jay. The pleasure's mine. It's been a great 20 years that I've known you, and please pass along my hello to Gene, and hope you guys are doing great. And I hope we can both get through this EHD, I call it, Elk Hunter's Depression, for the next 6 months and make it to September. And everything will be good, and I look forward to maybe seeing you out there in the elk woods.
That sounds great. I only know a couple ways to handle that EHD, and that's lots of turkey hunting and lots of fishing, and then at that point I can block most of it out of my mind except for those wee hours in the morning. But, yep, it will be soon here. We'll be hearing those elk bugle, and I look forward to it and look forward to seeing you again, buddy. Okay, so take care.
Thanks, Jay. You do the same.
And I do want to say the best way for people to look you up is chappellguideservice.com. That's the best way to contact you for all the calls, for the guide service, for everything, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We also have a Facebook page, which is Chappell Guide Service, but you can get to that from the website. So, yes, the website is the best.
Okay, sounds good, buddy. Take care, and I'll catch you later.
Thanks, Jay. God bless.
All right, you too. Thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to gohunt.com/insider and join today.